Hi, this is Chris Dubois, pastor of the Awakening Church. I wanted to talk to you about the amazing topic of grace. It excites me. Grace, like very few other topics, gets me so radically excited because I realize the central importance of grace. I would not be here talking to you. I would not be saved. I would not be a born again Christian had it not been for God's amazing grace. You know, growing up, I would hear that song, that blessed hymn, Amazing Grace, and I loved it. It was my favorite, and it still is my favorite worship song of all time. You know, for many people it is. Why? Because they understand that apart from God's grace, there go I. That's what the scripture says. It's by the grace of God we are who we are. And Paul says that. He says that in 1 Corinthians. I want to actually share that with you. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 10, it says, "But by the grace of God I am what I am, and his grace toward me was not in vain. On the contrary, I worked harder than any of them, though it was not I, but the grace of God that is with me." You know, grace of God does not produce laziness. It does not produce this cheapness where, okay, now that we're saved by God's grace, we're free to live as we please for self, for sin, for this world. Um, we can be lukewarm Christians, and at the same time, it's all good. God's grace covers me, and I'm going to heaven, so thank God for his grace. No, that's a cheap, distorted view of grace. That's a false doctrine. You know, God's grace caused Paul here to work harder than any of them. And you would think, well, Paul, man, the Apostle Paul, he's bragging here. He's full of himself. He's full of pride. That's not true, and we see that in this verse. It says, "It was not I," Paul saying, "but the grace of God that is with me." And that's where we can state as a Christian, look, I'm trying hard and I'm working hard, and that's not bragging as long as you realize it's not you ultimately that's doing that. It's the grace of God in us. And that's where God's grace comes in as his enablement and empowerment in our life that causes us to work hard, that causes us to walk in victory and freedom over sin, that causes us to obey God's commands and to do his will and to be who he's called us to be. So I just want to encourage you that see grace as this thing that God has given to us. Often you hear that grace, that an acronym, God's riches at Christ's expense. And it's true. It's through the cross of Christ that God's grace is poured out upon us. But let's cry out for grace every moment of every day, because that grace will give us the ability to work hard, to please God, to obey his commands, and to walk in true joy, freedom, and victory in life. God bless you.